So when I think of the mothers that impacted me, of course, the first person is my own mother. I mean, my mother was I was such a mother's boy. I mean, growing up, I was so close to my mother. And when I think about that question, are you a mother's boy? Yes. And then the next thing that comes to mind is I recall when my mother enlisted in the United States Army. And I knew that she was doing it to get us out of Oakland and get us into a better situation. But I couldn't fully process that as a young boy. And I believe I was in the first grade when she joined the Army. And I'm pretty certain I was in the first grade because I remember that year, my mom joined the Army and she went away. And I believe that I cried for 3 straight weeks. I literally came home from school every day and I cried because my mom was not there. And so for me, when I think about that mother, my mother, when I think about that person who meant so much to me and still means so much to me, it's my mom. You know, my mom told me things growing up that to this day I'll always remember. And of course, she told me so many different things, right? I'm a military man through and through. And my mom would say, son, you can judge a lot by a man about how his shoes look. So anytime I have on leather shoes, they have to have some polish on them. To this day, my mother looks at me when she sees me and I'm in my uniforms, and if my shoes look like they need some polish on them, my mother will make a little comment to say, son, what's going on? Everything okay? And so, so she told me about my shoes, that they had to look a certain way, and that things, little simple things like women judge a man by his shoes and what they look like. And then in your uniform, son, you got to make sure that your shoes are always shine, your boots are always shine. And so if you see certain pictures of me in my uniform, I made certain that my boots were shine. My mother told me other massive pieces of advice, like, son, if you're going to go in the military, go in the Air Force. Son, if you're going to go in the military, go in as an officer. And if there's any advice that I ever listened to from a mom that I am so beyond thankful for, it's that piece of advice. Go in the military, in the Air Force, as an officer. If I had not followed those 2 pieces of advice from my mom, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you today doing what it is that I do, because literally me going to the Air Force Academy, me going into the Air Force, me going into the Air Force as an officer, that has allowed me to do so many different things. But in doing that, I still adhere to so many different things that my mother taught me when I was a young child, from the shiny shoes to always wearing a belt, to look at someone in their eyes, to making certain you sound respectful. All of these things my mother instilled in me. My father wasn't around when I was growing up, and it's no disrespect to him, but my mother had to fill in so many gaps. And my mother didn't try to denigrate my father at all, but my mother said, son, I understand where shortfalls of your father and of other men are, and I want to prepare you so that you don't have those same shortfalls. What do I mean? My mother said, son, I want to make certain that you know how to cook for yourself, that you know how to clean up after yourself, that you know how to wash your own clothes, all of these things, that you know how to iron your clothes. All of these things, my mother was very, very adamant to ensure that I knew how to do, so that when I got out into the world on my own, I did not have to depend on anyone but myself. And so she was creating this self-sufficient individual, this self-sufficient young man that could go out and handle the challenges of the world that she knew that I would face, knowing that she wouldn't be able to be there to hold my hand throughout life. And so I'm forever grateful to her for so many lessons she's taught. I'm sure there are lessons that she taught me that I don't necessarily remember with specificity, but I know that they are there. And because of those lessons, they have translated into who I am today as a man. One of the other women that was very, very important in my world growing up, and still is important to me to this day, is my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother, because she was like my second mom. And a matter of fact, I talked about crying when my mother left to go into the Army. You see, I cried even harder because not only did my mom go into the Army, I had to go to basic training and then advanced training. After she was done with her advanced training, they sent my mom to Korea for an entire year. And we had to stay with my grandparents. And it was my grandmother who filled in the gaps. It was my grandmother who stood in her stead to ensure that myself and my siblings that we would be taken care of in my mother's absence. And so we did not miss a beat because my grandmother stood in there and she took care of us and she made certain that we had everything that we needed. And so my grandmother, she gave me bits of wisdom along the way. She taught me so many different lessons as I was growing up as a young child in Oakland. And to this day, my grandmother teaches me lessons about being a man, lessons about my humanity, lessons about how to treat people, lessons about life, lessons about being a parent. And she even reminds me, as well as my mother, they remind me of who I was and what I was as a child and how I should be as a parent, and how I should have a fair level of patience and provide a fair measure of grace for my own daughter. And so those two women, they literally laid the foundation as to who I would become as a man in this world. And that foundation has helped me to become who I am today, and it continues to help fortify me to be better and better every single day because of the women that they are, because of the mothers that they are, and the impact that they have had on my life since the day that I was born. And so those two women, they are at the pinnacle of what a mother is for me and how I view a mother to be. Now, the other person that has had such a significant impact on me that is a mother is my spouse, my wife. My wife and I, when we were married, we didn't plan on having children. And my wife and I, when we finally decided to have a child, it was one of the greatest gifts that we could receive. And what has been a gift for me has been watching her be a mother, has been watching her grow into that role, has been watching who she is as a person, and then how she's translating these lessons to our daughter, how she's showing what true love is, how she's showing how to nurture and care for our daughter. And even some of the most challenging times, I get to watch that firsthand. And that does so much for me and for my soul because it helps to make me a better person. When I see how she treats our daughter, when I see how she shows that motherly love, that motherly concern, but even more interesting for me was I got to witness that in my wife before we ever became parents. You see, we took care of my little brother and my little sister for the 4 years that they were in high school. And I remember one of the first conversations that we had, which I won't necessarily call it an argument because when my wife says something, it's really not an argument. It's just you do what she tells you, just call it good. But really what happened was I remember when that I think it was that first month that my brother and sister, they came to live with us. And what was amazing was I was so used to just having my own money and we had our own money, no big deal. And it didn't matter. And I remember something, my brother and sister, they needed something for school. And my wife said, how much money do you have in your pocket? And I said, I can tell you how much money I got in my pocket. She says, well, give it to me. They need it. And I thought, no, this is my money. She says, no, it's not your money anymore. Give it to me. They need it for whatever it is that they need. And what she made clear to me in that moment was that our duties in a parenting role, in a parental role, our responsibilities and her role that she was playing and what she was filling in a motherly role, even though she wasn't my brother and sister's mother, she was more like their sister, but yet she took on a mother responsibility. She was saying to me, it is time for me to step up and join her on that path of responsibility. So I got to see who she would be as a mother before we ever even had a child of our own. And so what I get to witness firsthand now is what motherhood is all about. I get to witness what it is for her to show true vulnerability, what it is for her to show how you take care of someone, how you love someone unconditionally. Sure, she loves me unconditionally, well, mostly unconditionally, but she loves our daughter unconditionally. And to just see that up close and personal, it just melts my heart. And I'm thankful because as a result of who she is as a mother, it has served to make me a better person. It has served to make me a better man. It has served to make me a better father. It has served to make me a better husband and just a better human in my humanity all around because of what I get to witness her doing every single day as a mother. So those are the three women for me that are absolutely critical when it comes to mothers that I've experienced that mean the world to me when I review what Mother's Day is all about for me